With the recent market downswing, obviously everyone is starting to flip bearish in a big way. And during this time, I think that it's so important to understand what's really happening in this market. We've been talking about the rotation from Bitcoin into gold, especially when gold starts to get exciting again, and we start to see the price of Bitcoin drop and the price of gold significantly rise. Is there other factors supporting gold? 100%. We have been studying gold for well over a couple years now. I've been, a very large advocate for buying gold and silver along with crypto because going all the way back to 2022, we were still talking about, at some point in time, we will see a major reset to the financial system, and holding assets is so crucial during that time. And, gold and silver has always been a solid buy opportunity, in my opinion, in a long-term hold for just stability and safety. But on top of that, countries have been hoarding up gold for years now, and central bankers have been buying up massive amounts, and that's definitely supporting gold in a big way. However, I still think that retail will flock to the most exciting thing, and so far gold has been very, very exciting, which is also what's driving a lot of value out of the crypto space into gold, and liquidations don't help either. Now, during this time, we've also been seeing retail become peak bearish at points in time, especially going back to the 10th, which was the beginning of the major downswing, which we are currently still in. Now, looking at XRP, we have just in odds of XRP hitting $4 or above this year have fallen to 20% per traders on Kalshi. So retail thinks that there's a 20% chance of XRP hitting $4 or above this year. So they don't believe at all that XRP is capable of hitting some of these key levels, which I find very surprising. Now, again, this is also speaking volumes on exactly how bearish most of the retail sector is when it comes back to even XRP or even crypto in general. But then also we got another update from Cointelegraph, which was update XRP crosses $2.50 after retail capitulated below $1 and $1.90, signaling peak FUD and a classic contrarian buy opportunity playing out per sentiment. Now, what's interesting about this is, yes, since then the market has had major swings, but the key thing that we were looking at here was the negative sentiment. This is positive and negative sentiment, and just studying this, we could see how massively negative retail has been when it comes to XRP, but also just in general crypto. Most of the retail sector, I would argue, has been capitulated around crypto. Most people don't care about crypto. They don't want to listen to crypto. They don't want to, hear about anything happening in this market because the price chart is telling them, hey, you should be bearish. So be bearish. Forget about crypto. Get out of this market and go and dive on into gold, essentially. Because again, when it comes back to gold, gold has been riding the waves. We have over here from Cryptos R Us, we have M2 global money supply explosive growth because again, the M2 supply has been going crazy lately. Gold is the first asset to ever break $30 trillion market cap. We could also see gold on this chart going crazy. And then on top of that, Bitcoin primed to follow their lead, which again, Bitcoin will follow the lead of the M2 and gold eventually. We don't know when that's going to be, but we know that it will eventually play catch up. And then altcoins are still just waiting for Bitcoin to go first. Deny it if you want, but the breakout is inevitable. And I would agree. I really do think that at some point in time, we have to catch up. I know that that sounds horrible because we're trying to predict exactly when this is going to happen. However, time frame predictions aren't the best to really try to predict. There's so many things that can get in the way. Like, for example, we could see a black swan event. We could see tariff announcements. We could see this trade war, be exaggerated. The main thing that we're focused on here is that Bitcoin typically does follow the M2 money supply. This is liquidity hitting these markets, supporting upward, swings. Now, on top of that, gold. Gold has been skyrocketing. Gold has been pretty much the focus from retail for the last couple weeks, I would argue. Now, during this time, we just shared with you guys a chart, which was this one, which was talking about the gold top back in 2020, which led to the Bitcoin massive expansion to the upside in 2020 as well. We have here a potential top for gold in 2025. And then we have the Bitcoin chart in 2025, which is just ranging around like 106, 108K. Is gold topped out? It's hard to say. I expect, gold to get boring again. And during that time, Bitcoin should go absolutely crazy. And we just witnessed gold sell off in a huge way, right? Gold fell 6.3%, largest single day drop since April of 2013. On top of that, we saw $1.75 trillion wiped out from gold's market cap today. Now, this was obviously yesterday, but the main thing that we're looking at here is, gold is dropping. It had a massive sell-off, which was to be expected. Gold has been red hot for quite some time. We've talked about it. The main thing that we're looking at here, though, is volatility is hitting gold. For the longest time, it's always been about how crypto is too volatile. Crypto is too, risky to touch. All of a sudden, you are seeing major swings like 6+%, which also, by the way, it led into an 8+% drop in a single day on gold, which is also kind of crazy to see. Now, with this, Anthony Pompliano did make a video. He said gold has dominated so far this year, but past results don't guarantee future performance. It is time for the great rotation trade, bringing capital from gold into Bitcoin. Now, we take this with a grain of salt because, number one, Anthony Pompliano is a Bitcoin maxi. He always has been a Bitcoin maxi. But I do agree with him on this. I do think that there's going to be a substantial shift from gold into Bitcoin. It doesn't have to be, 100% of the capital from gold into Bitcoin. It doesn't have to be, 50% or 25%. Even a small percentage capital rotation from gold into Bitcoin can support Bitcoin going from 100K to 200K in a very short amount of time. Listen closely to this video, and then I will address a few things regarding this.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, all eyes are on gold and Bitcoin because capital allocators are trying to figure out what the heck is happening all around the world. Now, the narrative coming into this year, 2025, was that gold is a great asset. That's true. But it does a better job of preventing losses in your portfolio than it does driving outperformance. Gold didn't go up a lot. It was just really stable. And so that's where Bitcoin came in. The decentralized asset was pitched as a digital gold, or what I've previously called gold with wings. The idea has been that Bitcoin boasts the same sound money principles as the precious metal, but Bitcoin's unique properties, those include the finite supply, the Bitcoin halving feature, and the relatively young life since inception. Those unique properties, they should ensure that Bitcoin would continue outperforming gold. But here's the thing, that hasn't happened in 2025 though. In fact, gold has appreciated about 60% year to date. That is the best performance in nearly a half century. Gold bugs are celebrating. Creative Planning's Charlie Bolello highlights, gold is now the best performing major asset class over the last 20 years. It has an annual return of over 11% during that time period. So this performance, particularly the performance this year, it has driven central banks' allocation to gold significantly higher. Makes sense. Prices going up, so the allocation goes up. Charlie writes that gold now accounts for over 20% of global central bank reserves. That's the highest share that we have seen in nearly 3 decades. Now, this central bank demand is important because it overcame the fact that U.S. retail investors, they've been doing the opposite. They have essentially been net sellers of gold and silver since the big rally in price started in March of 2024. But here's the part of the story that is confusing many investors. Bitcoin and gold have historically traded in tight correlation. When gold goes up, Bitcoin has followed approximately 100 days later. These two assets benefit from the same exact tailwinds of higher national debts, undisciplined monetary policy, and all of the geopolitical uncertainty. Now, in response to these issues, investors prefer to allocate larger percentages of their portfolio to sound money assets. That makes sense. They've been doing it for a long time that way. Assets that are outside the legacy system and assets that no one can create more of. So why is gold responding to the recent global developments, but Bitcoin has lagged? That's confusing a lot of people. Is it as simple as central banks have a lot of money, and so they're the ones that are driving gold to outperform because those large pools of capital are not allocating to Bitcoin yet? Well, sure, that's part of it. I think that people see that happening in the data. But there's something more nuanced at play here. What I see is that most people are too focused on gold's outperformance, and they're forgetting to check Bitcoin's relative underperformance. Joe Carlsar shows that the current Bitcoin bull market has significantly underperformed past Bitcoin bull markets. We haven't seen the breathtaking price appreciation that we've come to expect. That means that the market has been void of the blow-off tops that are driven by the retail frenzy. That's not fun. If you've been buying Bitcoin for speculative purposes, especially if the most attractive quality was its perceived asymmetry. You've been pretty disappointed right now, and I wouldn't blame you. I get it. Bitcoin has not delivered on the promise so far in this cycle of the speculators. But if you're buying Bitcoin as a defensive asset, buying it to protect your purchasing power from currency debasement, and buying it to protect yourself from out of control inflation, then you likely have been good with the results. See, here's the thing. Bitcoin's up 1,500% since January 2020. The asset has appreciated more than 18% in 2025. The asymmetry of Bitcoin came from the high degree of risk that investors were taking when they first bought the asset years ago. You get paid for the risk that you take. But Bitcoin's not risky anymore. It's very obvious to me and everybody else. Bitcoin's not going away. The government is not going to outlaw it, and Bitcoin will eventually seep into every sophisticated investor's portfolio. So you should expect Bitcoin's return to come down from past bull markets. This doesn't make Bitcoin unattractive at all. Instead, it means that Bitcoin's rise is essentially preordained at this point. It's going to take time, but Bitcoin is going to win on the global stage. It's going to win as one of the top stores of value assets. Gold's going to do well alongside Bitcoin as well. These two assets are not in competition with each other, but rather they serve as brothers in the fight against currency debasement. And that's a good thing, because coexistence actually means that both assets are going to win together. But in the short term, we may have hit a turning point this weekend, and this is really important to pay attention to. We are most likely about to see a large rotation from the gold trade into Bitcoin through the end of the year. Yao Wedson writes that bottom signals in the Bitcoin to gold ratio are extremely rare. They tend to appear during high volatility moments and sharp Bitcoin drawdowns, like we just saw. Well, we're exactly there right now this past weekend. The blue signal in this chart marks the current bottom, which is revealed by a normalized oscillator that's basically screaming, time to sell gold and buy Bitcoin. The green signal on this chart is even stronger. It shows up when both metrics align at their lows, and historically, those moments have been the best Bitcoin to gold opportunities ever recorded in the history of Bitcoin. So Yao's message is very simple. He says to the institutional gold accumulators, if he were you, he'd take a close look at the chart. The risk-reward profile of Bitcoin looks far more attractive right now, especially considering the current gold euphoria. So you can use this chart however you want, but mark this moment. It could be remembered as the turning point between gold and Bitcoin. So there you have it. Gold, the precious metal, has done very well in 2025. No one is disputing that. But remember, past performance is not indicative of future performance. We may be on the doorsteps of the great rotation from gold to Bitcoin. And if that theory comes true, well, then Bitcoin is likely to have a fireworks ending to the year. So don't look in the rearview mirror. Look through the windshield. It was gold's time, but now a lot of the data is pointing to it's probably going to be Bitcoin's time for the next couple of weeks.
Now, regardless of if you believe what Anthony is telling us or not, which by the way, he is, quoting a few sources there, the main thing that we're looking at here, regardless of if somebody is a Bitcoin maxi or not, is just the facts, right? If we're looking at the recent performance of Bitcoin and gold, yes, we did see a spike on Bitcoin and a drop on gold. Right now, this is what gold currently looks like on my screen. Gold is still extremely overcooked, especially on most of these higher time frame structures, like for example, even on the 1 week, which tells us that, yeah, I don't think that gold is yet oversold yet at all. It's not even close to being oversold, which is also telling us that this sell-off is not yet finished. We will most likely continue to see a big drop on gold, and we will see that capital rotation from gold into Bitcoin. And what's even crazier about this is we just heard from Bitwise, right? Bitwise told us that even if just a 5% capital rotation happened from gold to Bitcoin, we could see Bitcoin go to $242,000 plus. They also gave us a few other major facts here, which was at the current view, if we see a 1% rotation, it would send Bitcoin to 134 plus K. A 2% rotation would be $161,000, 3% 188K, 4% $215,000. This is just off of a rotation that is in the 1 to 5% category. We're not talking about 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 plus percent. Think about how crazy that is. Again, the main focus here is that we are starting to see gold sell off. even if we don't have something like this happen that repeats like 2020, the main thing that we're focused on is gold just getting boring. Okay. All we need to see is gold trade sideways for a few weeks. Give it a couple months, just similar back to the time period of, our April low to where we currently started to break out. This was like 120, 125 days or so. Give us that from our current high. So realistically, this would take us to about, February of 2026. That's a perfect time period for, Bitcoin to go absolutely crazy, altcoins to lead as well. Just like what Cryptos R Us was telling us, gold goes, down, we start to see Bitcoin and then altcoins. Yeah, that would play out perfectly. And this is all we really need to see. We don't need to see, a massive crash to the downside and, see gold get completely wiped out. All we need to see is gold get boring. Have an initial sell-off. We already got the initial sell-off. We sell off a little bit more. We start to chop a bit. We see RSI get, that full reset. For an example, we saw it back here. We got that full reset. Then we just chopped for quite some time. And then we start to break out again. All we need to see is a complete reset here. Chop, 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 full breakout into, like 2026. Or maybe we just kind of chop for a bit more time while everything kind of cools off. So again, regardless of that, the main thing here is I do believe that gold is going to get boring. Yes, I do believe that gold is going to continue to sell off. That's going to lead retail to look at other avenues of investments. Are they going to look into stocks? Well, I mean, stocks right now, if we're looking at this on the weekly, and let me just remove everything off of the screen. If we're looking at stocks on the weekly, again, RSI is getting pretty close to being cooked here. This could still lead to the S&P having a big sell-off. This is also at a time where if we're looking at Bitcoin, especially on the weekly, I mean, Bitcoin just recently, reset into the midline. So even if Bitcoin does continue to sell off, maybe we, have a much larger sell-off back down to like 80K, and then we start to have a massive rotation back to the upside. The rotation of gold into Bitcoin will help it have this massive reversal to the upside. And that's where we start to see RSI, most likely chop to the downside a little bit more during the sell-off. And then we start to see that big push to the upside into overbought. And that's what will lead to the topping point on Bitcoin. Again, that's in a perfect world. We take it one step at a time. We see what happens. But I do think, and I agree with Anthony here, where we will see gold have that massive rotation into Bitcoin. And listen, that massive rotation, it doesn't have to be 20+%. 1 to 5% is just enough to really start Bitcoin off to have that massive rally and reversal to the upside. So with that being said, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys did, definitely like, subscribe, turn notifications on because of more free content. You guys are more than welcome to follow me on Twitter and join the free Discord in the description below. And with that being said, guys, it's been Nick. Thanks for watching. Peace out, guys.